The internet hummed with tales, DMT, the spirit molecule, stories of transcendence, of touching the divine, of seeing the universe in a way that no human eyes had ever seen before. Forums buzzed with experiences, each more fantastical than the last. People spoke of meeting entities, of understanding the very fabric of reality, of feeling a connection to everything and everyone. It was a promise of enlightenment, a glimpse into the unknown, a journey to the very edges of consciousness. I was captivated, drawn in by the allure of the mystical and the unknown, a portal. I craved the promised kaleidoscope, the divine architecture, the glimpse beyond, the idea of stepping through a doorway into another dimension, of seeing the world through a different lens, was intoxicating. I imagined the colors, the patterns, the ancient structures that seemed to hold the secrets of the universe. It was a vision that haunted my dreams, a tantalizing glimpse of something greater than myself. I wanted to see it, to experience it, to understand it. Foolish. We are all fools, drunk on curiosity. We chase after the unknown, driven by a desire to see what lies beyond the veil. We gather in groups, sharing stories and theories, each of us hoping to be the one to unlock the secrets of the universe. But in our quest for knowledge, we often forget the dangers that come with it. We are like moths to a flame, drawn to the light even though it may burn us, and yet we cannot help ourselves. The promise is too alluring, too tempting to resist. I held the vape, breath-catching, lavender and metal, inhale, hold, release. The ritual was simple, almost meditative, the scent of lavender mixed with the metallic taste of the vape, creating a strange but not unpleasant sensation. I could feel my heart racing, my mind buzzing with anticipation. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. I took a deep breath, held it, and then slowly released it, feeling the smoke fill my lungs and then dissipate into the air. It was a moment of calm before the storm, a brief pause before the journey began. Anticipation crackled, a live wire in my veins. Every nerve in my body was on edge, every sense heightened. I could feel the electricity coursing through me, a tingling sensation that seemed to vibrate with the promise of what was to come. My eyes widened, my fists clenched, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. It was a feeling of pure, unadulterated excitement mixed with a hint of fear. What would I see? What would I experience? The possibilities seemed endless, and the anticipation was almost too much to bear. My reality dissolved, pixels scattering into a vibrant, impossible bloom, beautiful, terrifying. The world around me seemed to break apart, the familiar shapes and colors dissolving into a kaleidoscope of vibrant hues and patterns. It was as if I was seeing the world for the first time, through a lens that revealed its true beauty and complexity. But with that beauty came a sense of unease, a feeling that I was stepping into something unknown and potentially dangerous. The lines between reality and imagination blurred, and I was left to navigate this new, surreal landscape on my own. I was falling through God's kaleidoscope. The colors and patterns swirled around me, creating a dizzying, almost overwhelming sensation. It was as if I was being pulled through a tunnel of light and color, each twist and turn revealing new and wondrous sights. I felt weightless, as if I was floating through space, untethered from the physical world. It was a feeling of pure freedom, but also of vulnerability. I was at the mercy of the kaleidoscope, with no control over where it would take me or what I would see. Then, the colors bled away. The vibrant hues and patterns that had filled my vision began to fade, dissolving into darkness. It was as if the world was being drained of its color, leaving behind only shadows and shapes. The sense of wonder and excitement was replaced by a feeling of emptiness, a void that seemed to stretch on forever. I felt a sense of loss, as if something precious had been taken from me. The journey that had begun with such promise was now leading me into the unknown, and I could only hope that I would find my way back. The kaleidoscope sharpened, into corridors, infinite, geometric, cold. The swirling patterns and colors gave way to a new landscape, one that was stark and unwelcoming. The corridors stretched out before me, seemingly endless and devoid of life. The geometric shapes that lined the walls were precise and sterile, creating a sense of order that was almost oppressive. It was a stark contrast to the vibrant, chaotic beauty of the kaleidoscope, and it left me feeling disoriented and uneasy. I wandered through the corridors searching for a way out, but the path seemed to stretch on forever. The hum in my ears deepened, a discordant symphony of the void. The silence of the corridors was broken by a low, persistent hum that seemed to resonate through my entire being. It was a sound that was both familiar and alien, a discordant symphony that filled the empty space with a sense of foreboding. I could feel the vibrations in my bones, a constant reminder of the void that surrounded me. The hum grew louder, more insistent, until it was almost unbearable. I covered my ears, trying to block out the sound, but it was no use. The void was all-encompassing and there was no escape. This wasn't the trip I was promised. The visions of divine architecture and cosmic enlightenment had given way to a cold, unfeeling void. The promise of transcendence had turned into a journey through a desolate, surreal landscape that felt more like a nightmare than a dream. I was left feeling confused and scared, wondering if I would ever find my way back to the world I knew. The promise had been a lie, a tantalizing glimpse of something that was never meant to be. And now, I was left to navigate the void, searching for a way out of the darkness. Gone were the comforting visuals, the organic curves. This was different, colder, sharper. The air itself vibrated, a discordant hum replacing the initial euphoria. Fear, sharp and cold, pierced the drug-induced haze. The corridor stretched, an impossible labyrinth of angles and lines. Each surface pulsed with a light that was wrong, alien. My stomach churned. I wanted out. Movement flickered at the edge of my vision, not human. A shifting, fractal geometry like a shattered mirror reflecting a nightmare. It moved with purpose, gliding along the corridor's impossible angles, towards me. It stopped a few feet away, a being of fractured light, its form in constant flux, defying definition. Terror, raw and primal, seized me. It watched. No eyes, no discernible features, yet I felt its gaze like a physical pressure. A silent interrogation, stripping away layers of self, exposing the raw, vulnerable core beneath. I tried to speak, to scream, but the sound died in my throat. Paralyzed, I could only watch as it tilted its impossible head, a gesture unnervingly human. Then as quickly as it appeared, it was gone, absorbed back into the geometric madness of the corridor. The world rushed back in a cacophony of sound and color. It was as if the universe had been holding its breath and suddenly exhaled all at once. The vibrant festival scenes, the fast-paced cityscape, and the colorful abstract light trails all merged into a dizzying array of sensations. The noise was overwhelming, a relentless barrage that seemed to pierce through my very being. I could feel the pulse of the city, the heartbeat of the crowd, and the electric hum of life all around me. It was exhilarating and terrifying all at once, a sensory overload that left me reeling. I lay on the floor gasping, slick with cold sweat. My body felt like it had been through a marathon, every muscle aching and trembling. The exhaustion was bone deep, a weariness that seemed to seep into my very soul. I could hear my own ragged breaths, each one a struggle, each one a reminder of the ordeal I had just endured. The floor beneath me was cold and unforgiving, a stark contrast to the feverish heat that radiated from my skin. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my racing heart, but the images from the festival, the city, the lights, they all played on the inside of my eyelids, refusing to let me rest. The room spun, the familiar walls now warped and sinister. It was as if reality itself had been twisted, bent out of shape by some unseen force. The once comforting surroundings of my home now felt alien and threatening. The walls seemed to close in on me, their surfaces rippling and shifting like the surface of a disturbed pond. Shadows danced in the corners of my vision, and the air felt thick and oppressive. I tried to focus, to ground myself, but the disorientation was too strong. It was like being trapped in a nightmare, unable to wake up, unable to escape. The hum lingered, a phantom vibration in my bones. Sleep offered no escape. Every time I closed my eyes, the sensation would intensify, a relentless buzzing that seemed to resonate with the very core of my being. It was maddening, a constant reminder of the ordeal I had been through. I tossed and turned, my mind racing, unable to find peace. The bed that once provided comfort now felt like a prison, each minute stretching into an eternity. The hum was always there, just on the edge of perception, a constant nagging presence that refused to be ignored. Nightmares filled with geometric patterns and the chilling gaze of the entity left me waking in a cold sweat, heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. The dreams were vivid, more real than reality itself. I could see the patterns, intricate and mesmerizing, shifting and changing with a life of their own. And always there was the entity, watching, waiting. Its gaze was cold and unfeeling, a void that seemed to swallow all light and hope. I would wake up gasping for breath, my heart racing, the images from the dream still fresh in my mind. The line between dream and reality blurred, and I was left questioning what was real and what was not. The static began subtly. At first, it was just a faint crackle, barely noticeable. but as time went on it grew louder, more insistent. It was as if the static had a life of its own, a presence that demanded attention. The television screen would flicker, the image distorting and breaking up into a sea of white noise. It was unsettling, a reminder that something was not right. The static seemed to follow me, invading every aspect of my life. It was there in the background, a constant, unrelenting presence that I couldn't escape. A flickering at the edge of my vision, a distortion in reflections. It was as if reality itself was starting to break down, the fabric of the world unraveling at the seams. The flickering lights would catch my eye, drawing my attention, only to disappear when I tried to focus on them. Reflections in mirrors and windows would warp and twist, showing me glimpses of things that shouldn't be there. It was disorienting, a constant reminder that something was very wrong. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality, the world around me becoming more and more unstable. A whisper in the white noise between radio stations. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but it was there. A voice, speaking in hushed tones, just on the edge of hearing. I would strain to make out the words, but they always eluded me, slipping away like smoke on the wind. The whispering was unsettling, a constant reminder that I was not alone. It was as if the static itself was trying to communicate with me, to tell me something important. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never understand what it was saying. Always there, lurking just beyond perception. A shadowy figure, always on the edge of my vision, never fully seen but always felt. It was a presence, a constant, unrelenting reminder that I was not alone. The figure would appear in the corners of my eyes, a fleeting glimpse that would vanish the moment I tried to focus on it. It was maddening, a constant, nagging presence that refused to be ignored. I could feel its gaze, cold and unfeeling, watching my every move. It was always there, lurking in the shadows, just beyond the reach of my perception. Section 5. The Reflection. Mirrors became my enemy. Each glance brought the fear of seeing it reflected back, lurking behind me in the silvered glass. The fear became an obsession. I saw it everywhere. In the distorted reflection of a storefront window, in the rippling surface of my coffee, even in the fleeting glimpses caught in the eyes of strangers on the street. Or was it my imagination? The line between reality and hallucination blurred. Was it the lingering effects of the drug, or had something followed me back? The question echoed in the empty spaces of my mind. Section 6. The Symbols. My journal became my sanctuary, a frantic attempt to impose order on the chaos of my thoughts, but even there it bled through. I would find pages filled with strange glyphs, intricate and unsettling, my handwriting but not my design. Symbols I didn't recognize yet felt an instinctive dread towards. The hum intensified when I looked at them, a low, throbbing resonance that seemed to vibrate the very air around me. I tried to destroy the pages to erase the symbols, but they kept reappearing as if burned into the paper itself. Section 7. The Change. This is where everything began to shift, where the familiar became foreign, and the ordinary turned into something unrecognizable. Friends noticed. "You seem different," they'd say, their brows furrowed with concern. They'd gather around, their eyes filled with questions they were too afraid to ask. They could sense the change even if they couldn't understand it. Different how? I wanted to ask, but the words wouldn't come. My throat felt tight, as if the very act of speaking would unravel the fragile thread holding my sanity together. I was trapped in a silence that screamed louder than any words ever could. My reflection, once familiar, now seemed alien. The face staring back at me was a stranger's, its features twisted by an unseen force. I searched for a glimmer of recognition but found only a void where my identity used to be. My eyes, usually bright, now held a haunted, hunted look. They were windows to a soul in turmoil, reflecting the chaos that had taken root within me. The spark of life that once danced in them was now replaced by a shadow of fear and uncertainty. The static in my vision intensified, a constant reminder of the entity lurking at the edge of my perception. Sleep offered no respite. Each night I lay awake, tormented by the relentless noise that filled my mind. The darkness was no longer a sanctuary, but a battleground where my thoughts waged war against the encroaching madness. The geometric corridors haunted my dreams, the entity's silent gaze following me through the labyrinthine corridors of my subconscious. Each turn led to another dead end, each step echoed with the sound of my own fear. The walls seemed to close in, suffocating me with their oppressive presence. I was trapped, both in my waking nightmare and the prison of my own mind. The boundaries between reality and illusion blurred, leaving me stranded in a liminal space where nothing made sense. I was a prisoner of my own thoughts, held captive by the very thing that defined me. The change was not just a shift in my perception, but a fundamental alteration of my being. It was a descent into a darkness from which there seemed to be no escape. The truth hit me with the force of a physical blow. It hadn't been a bad trip. It hadn't been the drug. It was real. It had followed me back. The realization settled in my gut, a cold, hard knot of fear. I wasn't alone. I was being watched, studied, dissected by something beyond human comprehension. The hum was a constant companion now, a low, throbbing presence that permeated my every waking moment. It was in the walls, in the air I breathed, in the silence between my thoughts. It started as a whisper, barely audible, lost in the background noise of the city. But it grew stronger, clearer, a chilling counterpoint to the constant hum. We're here. The words weren't spoken aloud, but echoed directly in my mind, cold and sharp as shards of ice. My breath hitched, my heart hammered against my ribs. We're still here. I didn't come back alone. The hum is a symphony now. The whispers, a chorus. They're everywhere. Or perhaps I'm losing my mind. I write this as a warning, a beacon in the darkness. If you're drawn to the strange, the unsolved, the unsettling, heed my words. Some doors are not meant to be opened. Some thresholds once crossed offer no return. I opened the door. I think it's still open. If you're drawn to the strange, the unsolved, and the unsettling, subscribe for more Dark Thread Chronicles.